Peace and love. How's your spirituality today? Have you let go? Have you really let go? I've been reading the books of Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges to my little ones. And it's funny because, a lot of times when we look at the scriptures, we look at the Bible, we don't often go to these more obscure books. We remember the stories of the walls of Jericho coming down. But when you really read the detailed situation that these Israelites found themselves in, it's pretty brutal. And it almost seems like a game of cat and mouse where they're messing up, God's punishing them. They do right by God, they seek forgiveness, they mess up again, God punishes them, and it's brutal. Some of these stories, I'm sitting there and I'm reading this to my kids and I'm thinking, damn, this is heavy stuff. Maybe too heavy for little children. Then you go outside and you look at the road and there's a dead rabbit on the road. It's been ran over by a car. Its head's crushed. And that's brutal. And that's reality. And what you realize in reading the scriptures, whether you look at these stories as truth, allegory, some truth mixed with a little bit of allegory, whether it's just lessons, there's brutality in it, but you realize life is brutal. God can be brutal in his love and in his anger, and that's just the way of life. When you be out on the water and a storm hits, it doesn't give a shit about your emotions. It's brutal. And so when I'm reading these stories to my little ones, the stories of whole entire tribes that just have to get wiped out, how do you explain that to a child? You can't. But it's an introduction to life, an introduction to the great, great, gentle love and the harsh, brutal reality that is life. And go back to my original question at the beginning, which was, have you let go? And what you learn over and over again through these stories of the Israelites is it's just a constant lesson in letting go of the ego and trusting in God. And that could sound like old world religious talk when we say trust in God. A lot of people nowadays will say trust the process, trust the universe, trust the ether. But if you believe in a creator and a God that made you, made your environment, made your world, then you trust in God. You trust that this process, that this earth, that this universe goes through is God's process. And it takes a certain amount of surrender. You realize, you look at the old Israelite stories and they're constantly fighting themselves, constantly fighting temptation, constantly fighting. And the peace comes when they just let go and trust God. A great example is the story of Jericho, where they're terrified of these scary people that live in the city of Jericho. And when they just trust God, when they just let go, they're given these instructions, strange, march around the city, blowing trumpets. But they trust, and they let go. And what happens? They just trust the process, the walls come tumbling down, and it's all history. So when I look at this, I think this is the biggest lesson that we need to learn, that we can learn from the scriptures, because otherwise they're brutal stories. But when you step away from the brutality of the story, you realize ultimately it's just this grand lesson of just let go and let God. And as you go along in life, you have responsibilities. As a man, maybe you have a family. As a woman, maybe you have a family. You got business, you got life, whatever your responsibilities are. That tension builds, especially as you get older, where you're holding on to things, holding on to situations, holding on to your vision, what you want other people to do, what you want other people to say. And ultimately, it's just a matter of letting go and letting God. That's the name of the game. So hopefully today, let go. Peace and love.